Paul Klee, a name inseparable from light, dreamy artworks dancing between abstraction and figuration, the humorous and solemn, childlike and sophisticated. He was born in Switzerland at the end of 1879 into a family of musicians. He appeared to have his life as an artist set right from birth. Initially torn between music and visual arts, a fateful journey he made in 1914 to Tunisia settled for good in his mind that he would become a painter. Colour has taken possession of me. No longer do I have to chase after it. I know that it has hold on me forever. So proclaims the overwhelmed artist and true semantic surjection, Klee. Though hard to put in a box, Klee wove expressionism, cubism, primitivism, and surrealism together into his inimitable way. Merging geometry and amorphous forms, letters and hieroglyphs along with representational objects, Klee created enigmatic compositions that invite one to enter the invented worlds of the artist. His works pulse with a musical sensibility as lines, shapes and colours interplay like instruments in an experimental orchestra. In whimsical pieces like Twittering Machine from 1922, we can see how Klee's imagination ran wild with his inventiveness, like a child at play, as he conjures contraptions and characters. Delicate lines delineate a quirky apparatus, an amalgamation of the avian and the mechanical. Atop, perched birds become part of the gear work of this device, their melodic calls bringing to life its mysterious purpose. Klee's subtle sense of humour and flights of fancy are on full display. Klee worked alchemically in the studio, with broad experimentation in materials and techniques. His famous oil transfer drawings, a sketch is traced onto paper through a coating of black ink or paint. Then the fuzzy sepia lines are embellished with watercolour, result in dreamy haziness, as if they have surfaced from the subconscious. Ghostly figures are enclosed in an indefinite space, outlined by vacillating perspective lines, typical of Klee's poetic and philosophic feeling. Tunisia opened Klee's eyes to the ability of colour and light. Watercolours like Hammamet mit Moshi from 1914 pulse with light planes of pistachio and periwinkle, evoking an atmosphere along the North African coast. Colour thus became the foundation for painterly practice to Klee, hues chosen to harmonise like notes in a musical scale. As an educator at the Bauhaus school, Klee developed and documented a very sophisticated theory of composition. He was trying to explain the very basics of meaning generation and art making via simple graphic elements put together into intricate visual configurations. As he described in his pedagogical sketchbook, for example, in 1925, a line is a dot that went for a walk. In the views of Klee, even the most nominal marks are infused with life and have no boundaries. Some of Klee's most typical works, such as Senecchio, the portrait of an ageing artist composed with geometric shapes in warm hues from 1922, balance constructive principles with childlike directness and unabashed expressive colours. Utterly reduced features combine with clownish tones for a touching portrait, the distillation of character and essence. In marked contrast, Ad Parnassum, 1932, is one of the most ambitious, largest and labour-intensive paintings that Klee ever made, a symphony of coloured dots structured into a monumental triangular pattern, evoking both landscape and architectural diagram. It is a masterwork in detail, building up to a great composite whole, which demonstrates as little else will be able to do so, most exactly with subtle theories of his. But likewise, the sombre political realities of his era also found their way into his art. Persecuted by the Nazis, who dismissed him from his teaching position, confiscated his degenerate works from German museums, he escaped to the relative safety of Switzerland. There he replied with bitingly satirical drawings to the rise of fascism. As he battled a painful illness, the scleroderma, Klee continued unavoidable innovation. No longer able to paint in minute strokes, he turned out with boldly simplified, powerfully coloured, emotionally raw works. In his 1937 drawing Captive, the abstracted face with pleading eyes appears to struggle out of a cage's web of black lines. It is a terrible vision, suffering, confinement, and supplication combined. By the time of his death in 1940, Klee had left behind a prodigious and very influential oeuvre. Prolific until the end despite deteriorating health, he created nearly 10,000 works over the course of his career. Perhaps he was too individualistic to found a school directly, but his influence on many other artists is undeniable, given his relentlessly original view of things. Klee's art reveals hidden worlds and translates the invisible into the visible, reminding us that, as he said, art does not reproduce the visible, rather it makes visible.